And we begin with some timely definitions. Wednesday, a wrap-up of Tuesday. Thursday, a wrap-up of Wednesday. Friday, a wrap-up of Thursday, and so on. The collective consciousness of man wants you to think what it thinks. And it, sweet secret hidden whores in the haystack, thinks what life wants it to. So there. Historical footsore. On a planet in one of our sister galaxies, the end of a recent war that racked their world was announced with the words, "So there." A viewer writes, "Do you realize that you don't talk about any of the things that the other talk shows and commentators talk about, like politics, sex, finances, and psychological problems? I really don't know how you stay on the air. P.S. I watch you all the time but have no idea what you're doing, yours, etc." Cliche refurbishment. There is no winter or summer of our discontent. Only man's natural state of having a mind that knows no seasons and is always on the job. Rain or shine, hot or cold, always seeing that things keep a-jumping, that man keeps amusing, and writing reflections on his own inner life. The bard said to Dante, "That kind of takes some of the spirit out of what we've done." And Buddha, passing by, called back over his shoulder, "A lot you guys got to bitch about." Whales don't need the flattery of minnows. Why would whales even be whales if they were going to need flattery? Partisan sentiments are necessary at the physical survival level, but a hindrance at the modern mental one. I'll leave them alone and let them fight it out in the basement. You mean because we couldn't stop them even if we tried? Nah, it's just that that's the way things are supposed to be. Pardon me, miss, but did this car go up to the 5th floor? To handle the situation, one father simply told his son that they were too poor to afford a subconscious. Two of the town philosophers were at their regular morning post, this time discussing the possible sources of wisdom, when a kid whizzing by on a skateboard shouted to them, "Well, it sure doesn't come from just talking about it." And one of them shouted back, "Ah, shut up!" Two woodcutters were on break when one of them noted, originally the term enlightenment simply meant seeing things as they are. But that evidently didn't sit too well with most men's minds at the time, and the second axeman had to spit, nod, and smile his agreement. A kid sitting alone in his room gazed out the window, toward the town, toward the woods, and mused. If the history of man's thinking is actually the history of everything, then why doesn't history teach us more? How ritualized traditions appear far overdone from outside positions. Ha! Starching your socks, scoffed one man in the laundry room to another as he stood merely ironing his. A viewer writes to our in-house expert, Professor Presumptuous, with this problem. "Dear Professor, every morning when I first pour water into my coffee maker, it shudders and makes a perfectly horrendous noise, and it seems to sort of want to withdraw." Dear viewer, are you sure you're talking about your Mr. Coffee and not your mind? This one man, every time he had drowned, would try and take somebody down with him. Civilization, an attempt to regiment the mind in a manner similar to that is already natural to the body. And a man near an alleyway says, "I don't get it." That's right, and that's why you slide ever nearer to that nearest opening. The only way that civilization works beyond the mere word and concept is when a person is individually civilized within their own mind. Not unlike, I might add, the situation regarding systematic attempts to increase one's own consciousness. Another entry from our super sensitive, super secret dictionary, and as always, for your eyes only. Progress. Inching closer to death. Once upon a time, all of the world's mystics, sages, and metaphysical teachers gathered for the ultimate transcendental conference. And one man they'd pressured to appear gave as his speech this sentence: "If it's not original, it's not magical." Need I tell you that he was not the hit of the show? Everything that lives to maturity outgrows its name. After many years of struggle, a man said, "I now understand so much that I damn near understand myself." And a stranger asked, "Was it worth the effort?" And the man hesitated a bit, 2 days to be exact, and replied, "Well, I'd actually rather not say." We interrupt for this this overall update. There is a cow consciousness, there is a wolf consciousness, there is a cat consciousness, and a bird consciousness, but there is no such thing as a human consciousness. Now back to regular programming and Control Central, whereby you will be returned again to cow, wolf, and cat consciousness. Daddy, I know what Control Central is, but what is regular programming? Not what, son, but who. Regular programming is Control Central's right-hand man and main enforcer. There is no such creature as individual morality. One day, a physicist, a congressman, and a blues singer were talking. And the physicist said, "The one certainty in the universe is that even a dead man can't be late for his own funeral." And the congressman countered, "Nay, O scientific one, but the one inescapable reality of mortal life is that nothing is ever as terrifying as seeing a one-eyed woman cry." And the blues singer finally joined in by saying, "The great long sought for law of everything, you two have just managed to wrap up nicely in 25 words or less." Anyone who attempts to think beyond the mere survival level will eventually find themselves either entangled with, that is, apparently dependent on, or else struggling against some system of thought. And the ultimate reality behind all such systems is simply the normal requirements of the mind's routine operations. Now today's news of the conspiratorial. All conspiracies are an attempt to cover up some other conspiracy. Literature as contrasted to thinking. The difference between fiction and nonfiction is that with fiction, they just go ahead and call it what it is. Daddy, how is that comment about fiction and nonfiction a contrast to thinking? Think about it, son. Just think about it. In the city is a street corner sage who currently is promoting a mystical method he calls full tilt non-enlightenment, wherein you're not enlightened and you never forget it for a moment. Good city advice: if you can't write, edit. If you can't sing, coach. If you can't paint, teach. And if you can't think, well, I don't want to think about it. The police chief's body nudged him and said, "See, that's the good thing about me. I don't have to be fooling ways like that." And the official corpulent one huffed and replied, "Shut up and eat something." The main art of twits is twitticisms. And speaking for all of us, we shan't take that personally, now shall we? Twit, twit. All feelings of self-importance are actually feelings of assumed or imagined self-importance, since no one actually knows just how important they may turn out to be to life. Snippets of a dialogue executed within earshot of earth. First voice says, "It's far too late now for any form of criticism to do any good." Are you sure? Of that I'm positive. How long have we been under such conditions? Since almost immediately after everything started. One thing that is not possible is a psychological description of man. Okay, that's going to make two things. That, and it's not going to be possible to have a psychological understanding of man. One guy's morning poem. When I sleep too much, my eyes look funny. But when I don't, they look funny too. Me oh my, boo-hoo-hoo, what's a looks-conscious somnambulist to do? Oh, doctor, pardon me, but is moron spelled with 1 or 2 R's? To ordinary thinking, something becoming systematic equates it to becoming serious and important. How to Survive in the Cruel, Cruel City, a poem. You can plagiarize yourself, you can sleep in a hole, but you can't eat the dirt that you originally threw out. Oh, I'm sorry, I've just been notified that you can. How creation goes about its business on the day before the first one that you ever heard of. A tall, thin man and a short, fat one were talking, and one of them said, "Why don't you be a tall, thin man and I'll be a short, fat one?" And just then flying overhead were 2 guards, a happy good one and a serious mean one. And one of them looked down at the 2 men below and said, "What in the hell do they think they're doing?" Entertainment as practiced by city minds. The paying of someone else to do your talking to yourself for you. 2 items, if not for the price of 1, at least on the same page. An anxious man is a happy man if he works for minimum wage. Yeah. Men leave notes as cows leave dung. Those viewers who live in the far, far lower time zone may send in $4.95 along with the title of tonight's program and receive a totally fruitless attempt to explain how these 2 items are connected. A self-declared famous sage declared, "I am no one's hero." And someone asked, "Did you intend it to work out like that?" A street corner philosopher shouted to the passing throng, "Man's skeletal system is to his muscular system as his mind is to his consciousness." And a passing thronger stopped and said, "I was going to ask you, how so, but suddenly realized that you were going to reply, how should I know?" And the street speaker said, "Well, thanks bunches, now you've ruined the whole thing." And the passerby replied, "Aha, I knew you were going to say that too." And this brought the boulevard reflector down there to tears. Moral, those who would more, conscious be, know not the term, leave well enough alone. Oh, they know it all right, they just don't pay any attention to it. One man only thought of bygone hurts whenever he was hungry. The body says, "We're in this for the long haul." And the mind replies, "What the hell's a haul?" And the body says, "Hey, don't ask me, you're the one who made up language." And the mind replies, "Boy, that's just like a dumbass like you to try and weasel out of something by trying to shift the blame to somebody else." And the body says, "So how do you think I've lasted the long haul thus far, stupid?" And all of combined civilized, socialized, and psychological lies, humanity sighed and said to itself, it's good we can have these little talks. A spiritual tip for those with busy schedules. Rather than taking the time to try and live a more religiously acceptable life, one man had his photographs retouched to make him look more saintly. And now a quiz time for the intermittent blind. What is the most obvious thing in the world? That life is alive. What is the hardest thing in the world to remember? That life is alive. Life wants everyone to settle down and play their appropriate role. And with hippos, for instance, there is no problem once they're born hippos. But with man, yes, but with man, well, we all know what comes into play in his case now, don't we? In one faraway world, their mystical tradition goes by the name of educating trees. The mind's natural domain is the temporal. Combination update regarding matters of sexual legality and mental originality. To wit, anyone who speaks the words of others is a whore. Definitions across the galaxy. Fate, the belief that the natural laws of the universe cannot be affected. Magic, the belief that the natural laws of the universe can be affected. Religion, a place to go where you don't have to think about it. Our daily definition from the Literary Knights Dictionary. Metaphors. Symbolism for the faint-hearted. Man's natural mental state is not so much one of consciousness as it is a thinking about consciousness. Any appearance of futuristic data that is not systematized will be ignored. Futuristic data that is systematized will be subverted, which is why, to those of a futuristic bent, tomorrow never comes. A fact which is part of the surprising data. Only the realized mind can realize what life's about. As regards the matter of trying to expand one's consciousness, one father explained it to his son thusly. "Can you balance a feather on your forehead?" And the boy replied, "Yes." And the old man continued, "Well, all you have to do is balance it there continually as you do everything else you must do in life." The difference between real knights and the jack-off variety is that the latter can survive on maps and dreams. A quickie tip. If it ain't original, it ain't mystical, which is why Philistines always have heroes to look to. Oh, a little side note that might be of interest to some. To be more conscious is not to be a better cow or sheep, but more of a human. Carnival life, a scene from the Midway. The man running the thrill ride looked down at the kid with a cotton candy and said, "You can't do it unless you're with someone who can." One man finally thought, what are all mystical efforts but the attempt to be as much of a human as is possible? And my concluding thought for you is that this sort of thing is not for the purpose of getting well, but of being well. And then some. Out of some of what we've been talking about, and I hear from outside apparently interested people about trying to pin down what this sort of thing is. I'm already off the subject. Well, I don't mean that but see, I've already read the script. Well, a few seconds before you hear it, and I just realized I was about to do another one. Along those lines, there are two whole fields. Now, it's sort of tied in. There are two whole areas. As you know, we're not talking about me personally. I'm just playing a part here. I'm playing like somebody would be doing this, and you're playing your part. But someone who might think they were interested could be around such as this, or watch it on TV, or walk in here and see some of it and go, this somewhat sort of interesting, etc. But what is this? What do you call this? Besides new intelligence, which you guys know, a committee made up the name, which is fine. I didn't want anything to do with it, but that was fine. And if they say, well, what kind? I would have to tell somebody if I was going to be serious enough to respond to it. I'd say, well, I didn't make up the name. Somebody else made up that name. We went with it. But they say, all right, well, what is this? Is this Zen revisited? Is this supposedly some sort of modern-day Sufi school? Whatever they said, it's not. But there are two ways then you could look at that. You say, well, is it that you don't want to say what this is? It's something going on, you just don't want to name it? That's one thing, which I was about to get into. That's where I was going to start, that has been not as publicly known as the apparent announcements and publications and advertisements for this sort of activity, but there's also a corresponding part that denies that it should be advertised, or it can be advertised, and etc. See, I'm already off the subject. No, that was the subject. Back to this off the subject. That you could ask, well, what is this? I'm interested because I want to know out there, I want some sort of name, or you tell me what this is about, who you are and what is all this, because it sounds interesting, but just tell me what the hell it is. I don't care, but tell me what it is. All right, I understand that. That's older than anybody would show up here, that kind of interest. But how about this? Here's what people never do. Instead of doing that and going, wait a minute, what kind of secret, what is this? What are you actually up to? I'm interested about it. I just want to know what it is. Nobody ever stops and goes, wait a minute, why do I care? What is the interest in me that makes me even be interested in this, and then even go further and insist it be named? Maybe that's why that wasn't original in the script. I'm not going to let it go. Well, what's the other side of calling out for the kerosene to get the two dogs apart? How are we going to get them together? Get closer. You missed that one, eh? All right. No. I'll abandon it. I'll go on. Besides historically there being, anywhere you look, all the way from the major religions, the well-known religions, to the apparent so-called mystical cores, mystical factions within them, that everyone knows the names, Zen, Sufism, everything. Besides that, there is also a lesser known that apparently is becoming more written about, no particular reason, but the Zen, as a matter of fact, there have been Zen and Sufi writers since I mentioned that, but there have been others that say that the real blank, the real Zen activity, the real Sufi activity is never what you see. Never is historically, and anything that now claims to be. And this has been said at any time, but we'll say today, but this could have been 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. But there are people right now would say if you found something, an activity that claimed to be some specific, would be transcendental activity, such as a Sufi school, then they would go to great pains, certain writers, certain thinkers, certain apparent, either apologists or perhaps pointers to secret activity, would say, well, if you find something that actually claims to be a Sufi school or a Zen school, then you can rest assured that it's not, because all it's going to be is like the shell. It's going to be the Parthenon, and you're dealing with an abandoned building. You're dealing with what was left over, and people, because of their own psychological shortcomings and etc. and their own problems, they have simply taken it over like rats take over an abandoned building. That sure, you look at it and you think, what a beautiful piece of architecture. But my God, it's 2,500 years out of date, it's crumbled, and it's just rats took it over. So if you listen to that enough, and there are people that obviously has always had a small little following, but it has some following, if you listen to it enough or read it enough, then you ended up feeling like, well, wait a minute. According to you then, no matter what I find, won't be it. And with certain people that perhaps their mother was scared by a Zen monk, postnatally, in their case, prenatally, then they might go, oh, hey, boy, that's so weird that it must be important. I got to go. That they continually, I assume you're following, there's a point to this, because we're not talking about people out there, we're not talking about a Sufi school or a Zen school, but this kind of activity, that there has been a parallel running that you just never hear about. It doesn't make history. This is just of no great importance. But running, tracking along with, whatever you look back, if you look back at, say, the birth of Zen, and you were reading some of the history and how the schools went from India into China and then into Japan, and the name changes and all the great teachers and what they wrote and what they said. It was also running along, that's not in the history books, it's like that was a train taking off. It turns organic, it begins to just flourish, it becomes part of civilization, and it does become simply an institution. Even while it may be saying we're not institutional. This is for individual enlightenment, this is for individual progress, and this is not for everybody. But it's already institutionalized, it's already a great train on the track, or it would not be in history. But what I was going to tell you was at the time, there was somebody running along beside that train once it got going, let's say Zen. There was somebody running along, not hollering at the train, that'd be a waste of time, but there was somebody who understood something, let's say. Anyway, there was somebody running along beside the train then saying, the train's not it. No. And if anybody tells you the train's it, you're wasting your time. If you really want to go where the train says it's going, on the front of the train it says enlightenment, let's say. You know, like buses out. And this guy's running along, somebody, and saying, if that's where you want to go, don't ever get on a train that says that's where they're going. And all right, then there's some validity. And there'll be people that hear it and go, oh, yeah, you're right. The point, not the point, a point, is then you would have to ask yourself, or you should, well, if that be true, then where will this end? If everywhere I look, they're responding to this sort of unrecorded, lesser known history of mysticism and things extraordinaire, the ones that say, hey, anything, those of you who've got a taste for the mysteries and the extraordinary and the magic, give you one hint at least. I'm speaking for somebody else, theatrically. They say, I'll give you one hint. Wherever it says, wherever they're advertising, things mystical, things magical, the bus is going here. Anywhere that says that, you're wasting your time. It may be friendly. They may have potluck suppers. You might pick up a woman or a man, but it's not going there. And people go, wow. And there are groups of people that it strikes them as, yes, that's true. But you hear that enough, and then you got to be left with, well, what the hell I do? Consider this. Remember, we're not talking about actual, some sort of activity, institutionalized or otherwise outside. It's your interest. Why are you interested? And why is it that people do not see? Why do they turn and go, well, wait a minute, is this actually a real secret mystical school or some system? Will this actually go where it says it's going? What's all this out here? Where did you get the hunger? Where did it arise? And don't start pulling some kind of childish, that you did have prenatal frights and that, you know, a Zen monk rubbed your mother's stomach and went hota, and held up a picture of Buddha or something. Just simply, where did the hunger come from? It came from you if you're a real knight and not the jack-off variety. If you're a real knight, you were born with it. Leave it at that. So, why is it that no one asks themselves and they keep saying, well, where should I go out here? You end up, and that becomes a system. Even if you say, well, no, wait, I'm not going to join anything. Well, wait a minute, this is going to have to be proven to me. Why the hell do you keep looking out there? What drives somebody to look out there? Besides the story about, well, how can you tell? And then there's always somebody standing around going, well, that's the thing about it. You can't tell. Well, you can tell this for sure. If they say, here's the end of the rainbow, rest assured, there is no go. And it just strikes many people as, well, that's got to be true. And relatively speaking, it is, if not true, it is more operationally correct than it is to rush where they holler, gold over here. And you don't have to take my word, all of you have been around the block, mystically, some way, and you know that anytime that they say, here it is, we got the whole system, just here it is, just come and apply yourself. If that's what you want, then it's a religion. It is psychotherapy. It is a social. It is a dance. The question about, to put it back out here, that it seems to be so important to people, is how can you be sure that you're going to join up with some activity? Why can't I find a great mystical tradition today? Are they all gone? Are they dead? Or could I trust a new one? Where's the history? Etc. That whole schmear, which is mystical talk for question. There's one thing, maybe I didn't build this up properly. I was going to give you one ironclad, bulletproof, money-back guarantee of what this activity, I don't mean me and you, although it could be, but I'm not referring to that. What this is not. Never has been, never will be, and this is what is staggering to the ordinary mind. This is what makes it appear to be secret in a non-essential way to ordinary minds. Is it is not therapy. It has nothing to do with getting well. Nothing. Did you say nothing? That was me. Nothing. Now past that, If I really want to play theatrics, and I can say, well, I assume it says anybody actually watching this, is this stuff actually gets on TV. No, I don't even know that for a fact, by the way. You guys keep saying that. I've never seen it. I don't even know. But anyway. I just told myself 3 or 4 stories. Well, I was going to say I could do that kind of theatrical and say, but about that point, anybody that had been trying to watch this would go, Jesus, let me see if the horseshoe tournament's still on or something. Because there's almost nothing traditional, there's almost nothing civilized to say after that, but what the hell do I care? This has never been therapy. This is not about getting well. Now, again, I am not speaking historically, although if I did, mine would be better than the official history. Christianity, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, that's the reason that kind of religion, by the way, in case you never tried to say it, that's one reason that you see so few Zarathustra's anymore. Zoroastrianism. Anyway, I know that there are theologian historians now try to explain why times changed and the religion, that kind of interest fell off. I say it's their damn name. I mean, it's easier to say, there you are, they're about to draft you and send you out, you might get shot or something. They say, well, in case you get hurt, what are you? It's easier to say, well, I'm a Jew, I'm a Baptist. But to say, I'm a and they have to say, wait a minute, are you going to spell this? And you think, Jesus, I are one, I can't even spell it. I can't even pronounce it. Anyway, back to it. Assuming, as many people like to guess, but let's assume for a second that there was some individual, mystical, magical, but truly individual core to everything you ever heard of. Things that just ordinary people imagine. That there was actually a individual effort, practice, knowledge that gave birth to Buddhism, to Christianity, to Judaism, to everything. All right? They are now a part, as they should be, but they are now part of the civilized fabric. They're part of the kind of social cushion, the kind of the extended family of man. If nothing else. I mean, the church is now misnamed, in a sense, in the same way traffic courts, you remember. Because anything that reaches maturity outgrows its name. Which serves a purpose because it sets it up immediately. If it reaches maturity, it's got to be standing on the 2 legs of polarized energy, and so it's got to have its critics. We've been through this, but I want to remind you, since I was bringing up last time, about things outgrowing their name, is anything that apparently has good intentions, anything that is apparently necessary, let's say like religion in general, then anybody can criticize religion. At any particular time on this planet, X number of people, if they're thinking about religion in any way, then half X over 2, is criticizing it, complaining about it. 5 minutes later, that same parts of the ones that were in the negative side could be praising it now. But it doesn't matter. You understand, when anything reaches maturity, it's outgrown its name. And simultaneous with that is, when you outgrow your name, then half of you becomes a critic of whatever it is. Including you, by the way, which you remember we were closing up about things that outgrow its name, such as, yes, my name's Bob Boy Wonderbrain. Well, it's too late now. Okay. Okay, I'm a traffic court. Well, all right. I'm a religion. Religions are now simply, as they're supposed to be, they are like forms of mass family psychotherapy. It's the whole purpose of the collective mind of man, of civilization. So everyone would consider, even critics, I know part of that hanging that we've been through that enough, but even though critics of religion, let's say, people who would say, well, I am absolutely an atheist. I'm an atheist, but I will admit this, I'm a civilized, humane man, and I will admit that religion, organized religion, as long as they don't infringe upon my rights to go to dirty movies and etc. At any rate, as long as they don't interfere with my rights, religion does serve a purpose of such as charity, of trying to take some of the rough edges off man's behavior, it's a good charitable organization in general. They can say that. They can say that even though they do not believe in God, or they don't believe in any particular religion, whatever they say, they could say, but I see that they do some good work. That people who are drunks can end up there, and I know the church down here has a self-help program. They have counselors to help people, and etc. Then you would think, and people do think, I don't mean that just generically, theoretically to you, that if there is some sort of great magic or mystical possibility in man's nervous system, it is certainly charitable, even if that might not be the first word that came to mind. In other words, if religion, if civilization itself, working at just at room temperature, as it should, at ordinary speed, is in some way the caretaker, or is attempting to be a caretaker, a provider, a comforter of man, then if religion does have a secret core, let's just call it the mystical core, if it did have, then it would have to be super charitable, caring, and comforting. That's only logical, which is why logical people don't ride this train. Oh, some of them step on it and then they get disoriented. Send them back to the club car. That's kind of a joke, because what we do with them is when logical people go back there, we club them. Back to what I said, after I said that this is not about getting well, there's not much to talk about. Surely, if this is on TV, that everyone's turned it off now. It's not certainly anti-people, and it's not being hard-nosed or any of that, anything you can explain. But what those many people helps protect life's balance, not to hide this kind of activity, because contrary, that's always funny. Why I know it still goes on. People think some great secret work. If there is, what they mean by great secret work, if it is going on somewhere, it's not that it's secret. They could advertise the hell out of it and it wouldn't help. It's like the conspiracy. Once you begin to see that, there is a conspiracy, the stupid conspiracy. And you remember and just don't know it if you believe in conspiracy. No, it doesn't work. Yes, it does. This is not about getting well. For the third time, I point out there's nothing to say after that, but I'm pressing on fearlessly. And there is no way to adequately explain that to ordinary people. This is not psychotherapy, and I don't mean me. I'll say it again, and I don't mean what we're doing. This has never been psychotherapy, and it's not about getting well. It's not even about getting better. You have to start off well. And there is no definition of well. Which is another way, if you want to, if speaking theoretically to a theoretical generic crowd, if indeed you were still trying to identify some secret organization or some possible source of this kind of magical futuristic data, then here's another way to tell. If they will promise to help you with your problems in any way, then I guarantee you, I give you my personal, I don't normally do this, you know, because I don't have anything to back it up with except me personally. I give you my personal guarantee, they don't know shit. Anybody will offer to help you with your personal problems? I mean, if you've got personal problems and that's your problem to you, my personal, then stick with them. Go there. Really? But this has never been therapy. It is not about getting better. Not to ordinary views, because to ordinary people, getting better is what? It's not getting better. It's not self-improvement. It's a holding pattern. It's damage control. That's being ordinary. You have got to be born, and you can't help this. Now we can skip all the jokes about prenatal influences. You got to be born weird. You got to be born unusual. And it is so delicate. It is so strange. And here's another way, by the way, between this sort of real thing, if it actually existed and was somewhere, between this and ordinary so-called self-announced mystical, magical activity. They will seem to have something in common. Is one reason they're normally referred to and usually end up being somewhat cultish, is they will dress alike, look alike, talk alike, at least under certain conditions, like when they, and look around. Are you at home? Look around. If there's anybody there in the house where you're watching, of course, kind of people watch this on TV. I doubt if there's anybody living with you to start with. Which, well, that could be a positive sign, because you're probably living alone. In a certain sense, you are unusual to start with. You can't fake it. And in a sense, you're well. And I know that many people throughout history, I don't mean just you people now, that you can think, well, I'm not well. I got all kinds of problems. But one thing about, I've been trying to hint over the last several weeks of me bringing up knights and mythology and stuff, a real knight, you got to get on your horse and just, you ride off. And any idea about, somebody says, your horse is lame. And your armor's rusty, Plus, do you realize that armor is like, last year's style? Whatever it is. Or they say, do you realize you got one eye? Do you realize you're overweight? No matter what it is, you think, well, yeah, but screw it. Of course, the real knight doesn't say screw it. He wouldn't even respond. This is not about getting well. But notice what everybody in the world wants. As they're supposed to. They think they want to get well. They call it other things. I want to improve myself. I want to quit smoking. I want to lose weight. I want to quit drinking. Or what appears to be a little more positive. I want to make more money. I want to be famous. I want to look better. Whatever it is. It's all a matter of trying to get well. They think I would be happy. Just ordinary people. As they're supposed to. It's not a sin. They're not idiots. Ordinary people who have no interest in such as this, and all of you got a piece of it, so you know what I'm talking about. There is nothing whatsoever problematic with an ordinary man saying, I want to be rich. Everybody got to spend 65 years here. You got to do something or you go nuts. So ordinary people, he wants to get rich. I'd like to lay more women than anybody ever has. Whatever the hell it is, it's nobody's business. Oh, I know it's everybody else's business over there. That's why you have history and National Enquirer and Confession, amongst other things. Most people, even those who think they're interested in something extraordinary, never get past the point. Never. I am getting to a point, believe it or not. Never get, and this is now getting, I hope, a little personal with some people. Or as the Southern Baptist mystics used to say, I hope this begins to step on some people's feet. Many people who almost were born and had the generic jumbled code to be interested in such as this will still never get past the point of thinking, well, I just got to get well. If I ever get well, then by God, they'll never stop me. I'll take off like a mystic with a rocket up his ass. Do you understand? As long as you do not understand the difference between things organic and things systematic, as long as you do not understand the difference between life being as it is and life in ordinary minds believing it should be otherwise, you will always be trying to get well. For what? I mean, I can put it crudely, which nobody ever likes. Well, you guys will laugh, of course. Everybody wants to get better. For what? I mean, so that you'll look nicer when you're dead? I slipped it in tonight. You remember the definition I gave for your eyes only? Progress. This is eyes only, and I didn't add a lot, but see, it's actually me describing progress the way it is to ordinary people, but they won't look at it that way. Progress. Inching closer to death. As long as you think you have to get well, nothing happens. And even that's dangerous to say, is why I don't talk much like this, because then somebody could make you go, it's the I'm okay, you're okay philosophy. It's not a philosophy. See? Because then you win already. If somebody goes, it's that I'm okay, you're okay. Then if I was, for some reason, dumb enough that I was engaged in a verbal dance with somebody, I would immediately realize, I'm dancing with a cripple. I'm dancing with somebody that doesn't know the tune, and I'd drop out. I'd say something like, pardon me, I got to go to the bathroom, I'll be right back. And I'd get out of town. Because it's not a philosophy, but you do understand that it sounds like it. It's why this is so, viscid to talk about. Is there anything like shitty? Real close. Difficult, that's better. I like that better. Difficult. Because as soon as somebody says, oh, well, that's the philosophy that you're just like you are and that you should accept yourself and go with it. As soon as you say that, you do understand, you still believe you've got to get better, that you've got to get well. And if they say, oh, it's that kind of philosophy, then they've already taken themselves off that particular dance floor. Because as long as you think it's philosophy, then you think it's a system. You think, well, this is something out here for me to follow. It is some sort of paradigm. There's a model somewhere. You just won't reveal what it is of things to do. It's not things to do, it's things to be. And I know people said that before. And somebody goes, oh, that's heavy. So I'll just be instead of try to do. Well, that would have been all right until you said it, you dumb mother. Oh! I can always end up and say, well, does anybody see how strange it gets? And you paint yourself in the corner, except then you got to realize there's no corner here. But see, as long as you keep worrying now about to do it, you look and there's a corner, which I will submit to you shows again how the mental reality is finally taking over the physical world. That is the basis, that was the original basis for the idea of, what do they call it in the desert? Illusions, delusions, mirage. That was the original basis for it. That if you look around and you think, well, it's getting dangerous. It is getting dangerous. I got to get better. You do. I got to get well. There's no doubt about it. You can't get well. I hate to even keep saying it that way. I'll repeat it again. This is not about getting well. It's not about getting better. And after that, what can you say besides you just talk? And don't just look at me, look at your own nervous system. That if I insisted and you thought, well, perhaps there's some significance and I will take his word for it, I'll try to ponder it for a minute. If I said, everybody consider that there is no such thing as any kind of extraordinary activity of any sort, personally, individually, that has anything whatsoever to do with getting better or getting well. Now think about it for a second. And if you all tried your best, look in your own nervous system, what happens? Nothing. It's like somebody jumped in the attic, some wild kid or somebody let a cougar loose in your attic, and it just knocks and kicks everything over and hollers and screams, and that's what goes on. And what can you do with that? Because your own nervous system says, wait a minute, you know damn well you eat too much, you sleep too much, you don't get enough exercise, you got a bad temper. Whatever the hell it is. Like this is a great major breakthrough on your part. After 20, 30, 40, 50 years, there was a guy tonight that said he had, after many years of struggle, he says, I now understand so damn much that I almost understand me. And somebody asked him, was it worth the effort? And he said, well, I'd rather not say. The ordinary nervous system can't do that because it has to say. I was trying to kill enough time to get real crude right in the last minute or so of the tape. Well, that is right in your face with. If it were true that there is no way to get better, there's no way to get well. I know I'm putting it sounds like two different things, and that's the benefit of never showing up for rehearsal. See, is right in the middle of this, I decided to give you both of them, because just one of them would be, if you're listening real close, would be a little mentally, polarly annoying, but giving you both of them should annoy you in 4 different ways instead of 2 possible ones. If there is no way to get better and no way to get well, then a person would absolutely be stuck on their own to say, well, what can you do? What effort can you make that would be meaningful whatsoever if it is not to lead towards something, some improvement in me? Which is a good question. I got a better question. Why has it taken 5,000 years for you to be able to hear me say that and go, that's a good question? Why has it taken 5,000 years of people attempting to do, you're already a whore if you've ever tried some system. If you now repeat anything anybody says, you're not but a whore. You're born a whore, you're going to die a whore. You don't know what originality is. You don't know what the nervous system is about. All you are is a mirror, a sounding board, the Grand Canyon, an echo. It's all right. It's all right. But you're not going to get better. But notice, ordinary people, if they follow some system, what are they following? Why are they following a system? Back to my question of 60 seconds ago. If it is not about getting better, if it is not about getting well, and someone heard that and took it as best they could to heart, took it sincerely, then the question I presented to you was, well, what would a person do? If they still had the hunger, like, all right, I hear some of that, and I only have one interest in life, and that's whatever the hell this kind of stuff is. But what can I do, just practically speaking? Then ask yourself, 5,000 years of every practice you ever thought about, because anything that you've ever tried to do, any kind of meditation, any kind of chanting, any kind of praying, any kind of picturing, any kind of whatever the latest is not latest. Because whoever is teaching, whatever system they're teaching, they're whoring, they're plagiarizing, they got somewhere, but they don't look at it that way. Contrary, they look at it as being the sales pitch. It's, hey, you're not dealing with some Johnny-come-lately. What I'm teaching here is based upon 3,000 years of Buddhist tradition. Then the question not to ask the person, or else you're as dumb as he is, or she is, would be, well, how come you ain't in better shape? How come you don't know what you're doing? How come everything you know, all you're doing is repeating? And they go, well, that's very interesting. As a matter of fact, Young had much to say on that. As a matter of fact, Master so-and-so of the 3rd dysentery dynasty spoke on that same subject. Now you notice when ordinary people, they immediately are captivated. They're supposed to be like, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. Well, everybody likes a whore that has experience. Who wants to go and pay somebody to get laid, and the whore go, well, how do you do this? You want a whore that says, hey, I'm whoring for Jesus. But what I'm doing, I got from Abraham, from Muhammad. All of that is why there must be systems. Is that people who believe that that they can't get well, they don't know it, but that they can't get well, they can't get better, and so what substitutes for it? A system. You've got to have a system, because then it doesn't matter. You can say, well, are you better? Are you well? No, but I'm working on it. Well, how do you know? Because I'm doing the thing, I'm doing the practice, I'm doing the system. Then it doesn't have to be, well, have you gotten better? Well, give me a break. This is just one lifetime. What are they? But you say, are you well? And they say, no, but I go to meditation 3 times a week. I do my zazen. I do my chanting. I do my praying. But are you well? No, but I just got through telling you 3 times a week I do it. What do you do? And the guy goes, watch TV and drink. So in other words, you're doing something. You can't get well. You can't get better. And the only people that belong in this, the crudeness I was going to throw into you, and none of this can be proven. If I had Dr. Spock's or whoever it is that the baby doctor that kept delivering babies that had pointed ears? Always. If I had some kind of magical power, see, I would wipe all this from your memory banks or slates. The only people that know what this is about, and have ever known what it's about, were born not going to get any better and soon learned it. Enlightenment, cosmic experience, transcendental experience is about knowing what you are. Not that you are, forget now that ordinary people go, oh, I'll come into my own individual importance. It's that you know what you are, and forget importance. I covered that already tonight, if you remember. That all feelings of self-importance, which ordinary people are supposed to have it. I mean, they go and pay money to build up their self-esteem. They get together and chant and go, I'm great, I'm this, we are great, I am somebody, all that shit, It's necessary. But all feelings of self-importance are misnamed. From a more alert view is, it's assumed or imaginary self-importance. I'm not attacking it. It's assumed on a more objective basis because you don't know how important you are to life, and I was being charitable about that. None of us know how important we are to life. I can tell you right now, I can give you a good shot. I mean, most of us are grown. I can tell you about how important you are. Look around. I mean, see how many people are following you for your autograph or dependent upon you for their spiritual or intellectual livelihood. That's how important you are. You have to be born well. And you can't help it. You can't change it. And it's not that you are, certainly, I'm going to stop. How much time we got? A minute? Huh?
2.
Okay. It is not that you are in some crude sense Superman. It is not that you are a miracle worker. But the whole thing of enlightenment, every story they ever had, and people that had the experience, since it's just us now left, let me tell you this. It is not that it turns you into something you're not. I'm sorry if that disappoints any of you. It does not turn you into something you're not. But at least it keeps you from believing you're something you're not.
Yeah.
It does not necessarily make you... I shouldn't tell you that. At least I got the ability to stop. It does not turn you into something you're not. And it may not even make a great change in you compared to what you believe or what ordinary people believe, which is one of these senses, the reasons that everyone believes to varying degrees of intensity in the idea of conversion. That if it does happen, to actually from a fairly crude, childish level of converting to a religion, bar mitzvah in the greatest sense of the word, of actually being converted and growing up and now being part of something, that it will change me. But it'll change you social, it'll change you in an institutional way, all the way from that to the idea of individual enlightenment. That when it happened, I will be somebody else. Well, again, it's the method. It's having something to look forward to that I'll get better. It gives them something to do. Because the ordinary dreams of it will turn me into a new man, which is an old story, an old description in all religions, that I will be a new person, the second birth. I will be new. They're really saying I'll get well. The justice of it, see, is only those who dream that I'll be converted, and the dream carries them. They end up and they're satisfied. They're the jack-off nights as opposed to the real ones, remember. The difference between a real night and a drugstore night is the latter kind can live. They can subsist on dreams and maps. That's the difference. Is dreaming that will be some great conversion and make me well, since it's not going to happen and does not happen, that gives them something to do until they die. The great conversion is not so much a conversion, it's realizing, I won't tell you what you realize. I'll put it back, I'll just tell you what I started out telling you. This is not about getting well. It's about being well. And it can't make anybody well. The only thing that can make people well is out in the street. The city runs it. Ordinary life runs it. Psychiatrists, religion, alcohol, drugs. Anything that says I can make you well, it's out there. But this can't make you well. It's one reason you've got to see how popular it's always been. In a strange way, you had to start off well. I know you don't think you are, or everybody thinks they're not to start with. That's part of being alive. The nervous system does not. But you have, the great conversion is getting over thinking you're sick. That's one way of putting it. I'll leave you doing my Southern Baptist minister imitation. I'll repeat. See, I can steal from myself and not be a whore. Or even if I am, I don't care. Because I've slept with me and I know how good it is. Plus, I didn't pay. Did I? This is not just me and you and this, the great mystical, transcendental experience, the dream, the activity, is not about getting well. It's about being well.